Hi, welcome to Mary's Hair Talk by me, Mary Hames. So today is podcast number 2, and that is beauty school culture. There's so much about beauty school that this episode in this podcast is probably going to be broken up into several. There's just so much things to go over and the environment, all that fun stuff. So buckle up, hang on tight, let's get into it. Okay. So, beauty school culture. Very, very important to remember about any kind of schooling you do. You are getting an education. You are paying for an education. Take it seriously. And I mean that with all the love in the world. Now, we're going to get into hot and heavy. So, some things that, about me, I started beauty school in 2021. And I was 1 out of 4 classmates, or in my class, they did monthly classes, so I was 1 out of 4. Only 2 out of my monthly class graduated, so me and my friend. There's just beauty school was a lot. It was a dumpster fire in itself. There was a lot going on. You learned a lot. You had so much in 2 years that it's hard to unpack. So, some things that, happened to me, happened to other students. There's a lot of drama. There was a lot going on. And we'll delve into it. We'll just go right through. So, first day of school happens, and we're all sitting around in this classroom, and we're just talking, introducing ourselves, telling why we're into this field, why we're going into this field. So my reason was I was a 3rd generation hairstylist. I've always been interested in the industry, always wanted to learn, always wanting more out of life. I've always wanted to be a cosmetologist. I've always wanted to be a hairdresser. And that was my reason. So we get through the day, and one of the first lessons we learn is how everyone learns, the different kinds of learning, like hands-on, or, reading it out of a book, or, everything. And it was kind of weird because it's why do we need this for beauty school? Why do we need this for our careers? But that's the funny thing. Our careers is forever evolving, so you're forever learning. So you're learning as you go. So it's kind of interesting. So there's a lot of things you need to learn. You learn state sanitations, you learn how to do a haircut, color theory, waxing, facials, makeup, everything. A good broad spectrum of everything. A cosmetologist can do everything an esthetician can do except for chemical peels, extractions, and dermaplaning. Anything that is chemically removing or physically removing skin or popping pimples, we cannot do. We can't do deep tissue massages because that's not in our licensures. You have to go take that special education to be a massage therapist or an esthetician. We can't do popping pimples or doing any of that or anything in that kind of sense that is acts against our license. So yeah, that answers that question. You kind of learn a lot of things at once. You learn how to do nails, you learn how to do hair, you learn how to do everything for cosmetology in such a short amount of time too. Now, you go through 3 months of fundamentals, so which is you learn hair cutting, hair color, and nails, updos, special occasion stuff, right? Odds and ends, facial waxing. So, and these are just basic bare bones, like you're getting the very bare bone basics in fundamentals. But then you move on to, like, after fundamentals, you move on to regular class, which is 1 day a week. And it's like theory, like some schools call it theory. We call it like, we just called it like long day class, or we just called it, advanced. It's just something above fundamentals, so you learn more on that topic. So you learn more about perms, or you learn more about hair color, you learn more about a lot of other things, right? So we get through fundamentals, everything is like different, and we're just getting kind of in the swing of things. People do tend to drop right after fundamentals, like drop out of beauty school. It's like the first month and a half on the floor. People just tend to drop for many reasons. It can be personal. It could just be it wasn't what they were expecting. It's just a lot. There's a lot going on. And how you handle it is how you'll handle it through the whole time. I will say at first it stressed me out a lot. Like, I was stressed most of the time and I hated it most of the time, but in the end, you went through it. Everyone goes through it, right? So, another talking point I'm going to talk about is how the educators were and students, like how educators treated students and vice versa, just kind of like some bare bones stuff. Again, this is like my experience. I'm going to kick off with one of my first educators that I had a run-in with that I just did not like, and she did not like me, and we just did not like each other. And this is just some of the toxicity in beauty school that needs to be eliminated. So let's talk about that. We had this educator. She kind of looked like a Barbie. She was very like two-faced. Sometimes she wanted to teach, sometimes she didn't. She was just moody. Like, you never knew what kind of mood you would get with her. So, like, sometimes she was a really awesome educator. Sometimes she really was not that great. Some big things from her is she literally came in and did the bare necessities. And, like, the biggest thing for me that really stood out is I wanted to be blonde, which I'm kind of blonde right now, but not. I wanted to be more blonde than what I am. And it was before I had the knowledge of how to healthily go to blonde. And so I went to the beauty school. I just, as a guest, I was a student there, and I just figured, you know what? I want to get my hair done. I never get my hair done. So let's get it done. I want blonde. So we're going from red to blonde, and instead of being the adult in the situation and the licensed cosmetologist, she told the student who was going to do my hair to fry off my hair so I could learn a lesson. Now, as a licensed cosmetologist, that is something you never say to a guest. You explain. If they're adamant, you can refuse the service. That's what should have been done. That service should have been refused. There should have been, like, I've done it. Like, I've refused services like that too. I've had to say, I don't think we're going to find a common ground here. I think you're going to have to find a different stylist. But in my professional opinion, I do not think we can do your hair. That should have been the conversation, and that should have been it. Instead, she said to the student, just fry her hair so she learns a lesson. Now, a little while later, I did fry off my hair because I did not listen to anyone. I thought I knew everything, but that's beside the point. We'll get there eventually. We'll talk more about that story later. And this educator also taught some of the advanced classes. One of them that is very big sticking out, she taught nails, and she said she was extremely passionate about nails. She never taught. She literally brought in her computer in a cart and played music. And we had this other student who was like in her 30s. And this other student tried to act like a teenager and was like really freaking crazy. Like just off the wall. Crazy. Like this student was something special. Like very special. So we were going through the class and the student is acting crazy, and a lot of this room is filled with 18, 19-year-olds. So they're all kind of acting a little crazy and kind of like not smart. So being a non-traditional like student and not like being older, I kind of wanted to learn and I tried to learn, but this educator was just not like care. Did not show she cared. And so that day, like I went to go to the bathroom or do something. And when I came back, there was another student, like this 30-year-old woman who's going crazy, singing, dancing, all that. And she was picking her toes all over my coat, like her dead skin off her coat and wiping it on my coat. And I stood at my chair and I'm like, excuse me, what are we doing here? And she's like, I said, why are you picking your feet all over my coat? That's disgusting. And she's like, oh, these are the cleanest feet you've ever seen. And they're cleaner than anything you've ever touched. It's like, how disrespectful are you to be picking your disgusting feet on my coat? Like, that is the grossest thing on the planet. And so she continued to do that and going on a tangent on how like her feet are so clean that you can eat off them and blah blah blah. And I'm like, dude, just don't pick your feet on my coat. Like, that's gross. It's like, ew, no ma'am. Like, we're not doing that today. Not today. But she ended up that student ended up dropping. But there's more to her that I have so many stories for her that it's going to be a whole chapter for her. Just kidding. But this educator the next day comes in into the classroom late, like 30 to 35 minutes late to class, blaming us, the students who were trying to learn, for not paying attention and not wanting to learn, and that she was passionate. And she didn't even teach. She just stood there. Like, there was videos of her just standing there jamming out to the music to this and letting this 30-year-old woman run the classroom. That acted, like, it was a dumpster fire. So we ended up telling another educator, and then that educator came down a little hard, which even that, I will admit, that educator was a lifesaver in that moment because, yeah. And then we had our one male educator. He was an interesting guy. He has said, like, the way he taught was totally off the charts. Mind you, this is 2021. There's some things that he said were not okay by any standard, and the way he taught and the things he did are not okay. They are not okay in the salon. They are not okay by me morally. They are not okay by anyone, and anything he said and did was wrong. And I wish that young stylists did not have to go through what I went through, and I wish there's something more I could do, but there isn't, other than talking about it. But I will say this person still works in the school, and it is what it is. And some of the things he said, I will not say on this podcast because I want to keep this positive. But I will say what he said about relaxers and some comments he made about things that were not okay. Socially, he made some racist comments, and that is not okay by any standards. And yes. There are things that I'm going to tell you that this school did that are just not okay. Okay. But back to the story. This educator, he was very abrasive, like not abrasive, but he acted like he cared and he was a big shot. Like the best way to describe him is, God, I don't know how to describe him because he's kind of like, he thinks he's like Brad Mondo, but he's not Brad Mondo. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Brad Mondo. By the way, if you bring up Brad Mondo to him, he hates it. But that's beside the point. Yeah. There were some things that was said by him that is not okay. Comments were made. The school did handle it. He was very hypocritical. Just some of the things, his methods were just not right. And he did not teach. He taught select students. There were some comments made. There was like a moment where I was on a struggle bus with a bald fade and I asked him for help and he literally told me, "It's your turn to fly, little birdie. You're graduating in a few months." And it's like, wouldn't you want to teach me as much as you can in this month and a half so I know, so I can be confident out on my own? Like, come on, you're supposed to teach. Just him in general was just stressful. I mean, there was some times where there was a moment where we had a chat and I vocally told him what I thought, and I'm not going to go into detail. It was a hot mess. I was crying. He put me in some situations that I should not have been put in as a student, but I'm glad it happened because I'm a lot tougher as a stylist than what he was, you know. I also had some really awesome educators. Like all the awesome educators, there were some that shaped my career for the rest of my life, and they taught me so much and about the industry, and they made that passion light up. Like there was so many things. Like I spent an afternoon with the new fundamental teacher, and she taught me perms and walked me through perms. And I actually understood it. Like she taught me confidence. Like she gave me that confidence. A lot of it is confidence because it's a new thing. You're scared. Your brain is like, "Alah," like freaking out because you're scared and you don't want to mess up. You don't want to fail. The biggest thing for me was learning how to be okay with failing. I know that sounds really weird, but I had to learn to be okay with failing because this was all new to me. Like there were times where I made mistakes. I still make mistakes as being licensed for a few years and being out of beauty school, and it's about growth. Like I've grown. Also, big thing is keeping up with your, you kept up with everything in school. You had to keep up with everything you're learning. You're getting thrown so much information and it's all at once. It's constant. Like you're constantly chomping at the bit. There's you just learn so much and it's a lot of hands-on stuff. Some big things and takeaways for me were just learning how to function in the school and how to be a stylist. And you get your kit, you learn how to use your kit and how to take care of your stuff. But that first haircut right when you hit the floor is the most nerve-wracking haircut on the planet. I cried. And it was on my best friend, at the time, I cried, and she was my model, and she's a sweetheart, and I am so blessed to have her, but, that was one of those moments where I was like, what the heck? Like, oh no, I'm gonna mess up. If I mess up, she's gonna hate me. Every thought came through my head. My husband, who was my fiance at the time, he was a big support too. As long as you have the support system in beauty school, you're gonna succeed. I It's great because you get some support at the school, and I say some very lightly, but like you get a lot of support from like your family. And my husband is a fantastic guy who literally let me practice on him, and I have messed up royally on him multiple times. Sorry, that's my dog. So my husband was a great guy. He supported me through beauty school. Like I said, there have been times where I messed up royally. I shaved off part of his eyebrow in beauty school. I mean, but the educators could have been better. And my plan for the future is I someday want to become an educator and be the educator that I wanted, not the educator that I had, because here's the deal. To shape the future, you need to evolve. And a lot of my educators, they were great people personally, but a lot of them were stuck in the times. And this is right after COVID, so things are evolving. And like we had one educator who thought he was great at advertisement. And let me tell you, I have a photography background. I used to do photography, and I have a little bit of a photography background. um the photographer he hired, he needed to get a refund. That was the nicest thing I could say. I mean, the photos are all overexposed, and it should have been taken care of differently. But you know what? He does advertisement, and that's him. And we're all learning and evolving in this industry and having to learn how to self advertise and market, especially over social media, because social media is such a big thing in our industry that we have to grow with the times. Again, we're going to be completely positive on my channel. We're not going to have the stereotypical Karen videos or dissing the educators. I'm going to tell you this, there were a few bad eggs, and that's with everything. As a CNA, I had that same experience. A few bad eggs ruined the bunch. But beauty school should be a place of, learning and evolving. And it's all about growth. It's about how you handle beauty school too. But we'll get into more of the beauty school culture too with students, and kind of how some stories and like how it like affected my life and basically all that. So, which I'm going to sign off until next time, and we'll see you in another week for another episode of Hair Talk by Mary Hames.